he snitches. And he tells my wife that I just jumped off the high diving board. And she said, he can just barely swim. What did he do? So I told him, hey, man, snitches get stitches.
What's up, everybody? Here with Off the Field. We got a special one for you guys today. We got the Coach Van Malone, who's a former safety in the NFL, second-round pick, two-time Pro Bowl nominee, and also just won the 2024 NCAA Cornerback Coach of the Year. We could go all day about your accomplishments. Today's interview is going to be talking about your renowned coach, world-known coach. So today we're going to be talking about the issues and struggles that college coaches, or not even just college coaches, but coaches in general face. And I know you have a lot of insight because you have a long journey and you've seen a lot, been through a lot. So I just thought you would be the perfect guest for this.
Great.
Cool. So for the people that don't know, can you talk to me about a little bit about your story?
Well, it's a comprehensive story, with like Shrek. It has a lot of layers. But I started out, I'm from Houston, Texas, and I started out in athletics, playing football. And for me, that was an opportunity to, just like I would say, just like most kids, an opportunity to be with friends, an opportunity to get out of the house, to be able to do something fun. Right. And so that was my vision of football, of athletics. Well, then, I had a tough coach back in the day playing for the Fifth Ward Steelers. Coach Doug, he kind of put it on players to use it lightly. And man, the practices, the tackling, the aggressive nature of the game, I didn't really realize that was a part of it. Well, after a couple weeks, I went home. I told my mom, hey, I don't want to play anymore. Well, my mom was all set to let me quit, but my dad said, you're not quitting. So I had to devise a great scheme as to how I was going to quit. My mom was in the boat, but my dad wasn't having it. So one day I came home and I walked into my yard and something just hit me to say, act like your back just went out. So I pretended that my back went out. Oh, can't move. Oh no. They ended up taking me to the doctor. Of course, nothing was wrong.
Right.
But it was just that episode that allowed my mom to overrule my dad. They let me quit. Well, later on in the football season, I'm in my yard, I'm in my front yard, and I'm playing around, and the team bus or the team van, they rolled by my house. And I'll never forget one of my teammates, Eric Dunn. Eric Dunn yelled out the window, you quit. We're going to Chuck E. Cheese's because we won the Super Bowl and you can't go. From that moment, and this is instrumental in my story, because from that moment, I decided I never quit anything ever again. And Eric Dunn was a great motivation for me in my athletic life because of the fact that I knew that I had quit that team under false pretenses, and again made a decision that never again would I quit. Well, I go on and have an opportunity to play in high school, have an opportunity to play at the University of Texas, have an opportunity to get drafted and play have a decent career. No athlete would say he had a fabulous career. So I would say I did some great things. I did some not so great things along the way. But then had an opportunity to get drafted, played in the NFL for a short time, but then got into coaching and have had an opportunity to coach at different places across the country and affect quite a few lives in terms of young men that I coach. But I've also had an opportunity as a coach to affect some young men who coach other people and who coach at other places. And so I've taken over the years great joy in that. And here I am.
Love it. So what made you get into coaching, Coach? Because you was actually in the NFL playing special teams, balling out. So what made you say, I seen online that you get injured. Was injuries push you to coaching and things like that, or what happened?
Well, there came a point in my career where I was talking to players who had played in the NFL, who had played many years,
Mm,
and and through those conversations, because I was in a place where I wanted to do something else with my life. Yes, I played football since I was 8, 10 years old, and
mhm,
and so I just was at a place where I wanted to affect people in a different way, because
mm,
I took great pride in having an opportunity to go and speak to younger kids, when I was an NFL player, and had great credibility when you walked in the room because you were a Lions player. But I
mhm,
just wanted to affect the world in a different way. And
mm,
so I did get injured,
mhm,
but players get injured all the time. You battle back from injury.
mhm,
But at that moment, I thought that injury was one that was opening the door for me to go into a different place in my life.
mhm,
And so once I got injured, man, I just started to think about ways that I could stay connected to the game of football, that I could stay connected to athletics, but then I could also, like I said, do it in a different way. And
mhm,
so I had an opportunity to coach at my old high school. Well, even before that, you asked
mhm,
what made you get into it. I think you're a coach. When you're a coach, you just coach people.
mhm,
You don't know why you coach. You just find yourself coaching people. And so one of my old high school coaches, he said, "Hey, we want you to come to the game, and we'll honor you at halftime or something." I don't know. No, wanted you to talk to the team. So I go
mhm,
and I talk to the team, and I'm on the sideline. And so when I'm on the sideline, I found myself coaching these players,
mhm,
and man, I just never left. The next thing I know, I was there the next week, and then I was there
mhm,
the next week, and then I started to find out, well, how can I actually coach?
mhm,
And I just never left.
mhm.
And that's, I think that's the way it happens for a lot of coaches, is that
Right.
they're part of the game and they just never want to leave the game in that way.
Mm. And like, I understand where you're coming from because I played quarterback in college, so I'm over there coaching up the guys on the field. So next season when I got off the field, it was like felt like I was literally doing the same thing, just not playing. I was like,
That's
wow.
right.
So
That's right.
definitely. But injuries happen all the time. And I had an injury in college, so it happens all the time. What's the biggest mistake you see athletes making the transition from on the field to off the field?
Well, I think that to be an athlete, it
Mhm.
requires a big time commitment, right?
Mm,
It
right.
requires a lot of sacrifice. There's sacrifice that athletes make, that if you talk about a college student, that normal non-student athletes would never understand.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are quite a few benefits that come from being a student athlete, but when it comes to the sacrifices that student athletes make, is unbelievable.
Mhm.
Well, you as a coach, you almost need to double that. And I
Mhm.
tell you, I over the years have said it to my players that, you know what, man, when you're at home sleeping, I'm still here planning practice for the next day. When
Mhm.
your mind is, football season is over, I'm recruiting for the next football team. I'm out doing things that are benefiting our team. When you as a player, you get an opportunity to move on. You get an opportunity to move on to the next phase, right?
Right.
After the game, you go home, and yeah, you run those things through your mind as to what happened in the game. I'm here grading the video, right?
Mhm.
So that when you walk in the next day, you have your grade reports, you have everything that you need, not only for the last game, but in preparation for the next week's opponent, right? And so there's a
Right.
there's an unbelievable uh, commitment to time, that a coach has to give as opposed to a player. And
Right.
then there's things that coaches, or information that coaches are privy to, that players don't have, right? So there's
Mhm.
decisions made behind the scenes that players don't have an idea about. And so when a player leaves the role of player and goes into the next step, the next phase of coaching, it takes an unbelievable amount of maturity, right, to be able to have that information about players, different players who might be on your team, and to deal with them on a level where you're not sometimes taking their off-field things into the way you deal with them on the field. But then again, like I talked about, the level of commitment that it takes, the level of commitment that it takes for your family when you're a coach is nothing like that as a player. So players understanding that, I think, is important for them to have success as coaches.
Love that. So beyond the coaching world, beyond the playing world, do you prepare your athletes for after the game for real life things that may go on, or just preparing them for real life worlds as well? And if so, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's important that, as a coach, one of the things that I take pride in is developing the whole man, right? Because coaches did it for me. And I think, yeah, of course, it's my job to teach you how to play man to man. Of course, it's my job that you understand the scheme that we're trying to install from week to week. Of course, that's part of my job. But I think to take it to the next step, to prepare young men for what they do 20 years from now is important to me as well. And so the way I do that is that the first way I do it is that I model the behavior that I would want you to exhibit as a young man. And then the next thing is that we talk about real life things. We talk about learning how to tie a tie. In our meeting room, we have a tie in that meeting room, because one of these days you're going to have to go and interview for a job. And if you don't know how to tie a tie, then there's a chance you might roll into that interview without a tie. And if the guy who you're competing with for that job has a tie on, well, you're behind, right? And so you're understanding that the first impression that you make is a lasting impression. And so that's a simple little way. The next thing is, there are a lot of guys who they play football and they step out into the real world, and they don't understand things like how you have to, what you have to do, the processes you have to go through to buy a house, right? To get a loan, to to apply for a job, right? And so we do a good, I think my players and I have a relationship to where they know that they can ask me these things that maybe sometimes they don't learn at home, right? Sometimes they don't have a male influence in their lives to be able to teach them to be a father, to be a husband. And I know we have social media. You can learn a lot of stuff from social media, but not always everything you learn is good, And so again, I try to model those behaviors, but then we try to talk through real life situations that a young man is going to have to experience, because when you go out into the world, as we would call it, man, you're competing with people who have been in that world long time. We talk about in the days of today's world of NIL, right? You're a young man, 18, 19, 20 years old, and you are across the table from a seasoned attorney or a seasoned businessman, and you're representing yourself in some cases in this business agreement, again, that we call NIL.
Right. Coach, you get me excited because we're going to be talking about the NIL. We're going to be talking about all that. So it's definitely a whole new world that college kids are facing. And just like, it's great that what you're doing, because teaching kids how to maneuver through the world, because sometimes they don't have nobody else in the household to help them, or they don't have their friends can't tell them what to do. It's hard to find guidance as a college athlete. Yes, sir. So we actually had two former Bill Walsh Minority Fellowship attendees on the show, but by far you're the most prestigious coach that I had on the show. So you actually served as an NFL minority coach with the Lions, and now you're also on the board in the NCAA minority coach in the coaching fellowship. So what's the biggest change that you would like to see in the minority coaches?
Well, I think, when you talk about, your question is relating to diversity in hiring, and there's a lot of factors that go into this. When you think about if you had a business, right, you were running a business, you had an organization, what you would want to do is, or the most comfortable thing for you to do is for you to surround yourself with people that you knew and that you could trust, and people who thought and believed like you believe, right? That's kind of the simplest, that's the easiest thing to do. Well, my challenge to you and to anyone else who was in a position to make a decision about who they would fill their room with is I think that you would probably be more comfortable with people who listen to the same music as you, because every day you guys come in, you turn the music on, everybody be comfortable, you know what I mean? Or people who like the same foods that you like, because you like chicken tortellini and they do too. So there you go, right? But my challenge is that there is strength in diversity, right? Because you might, if you bring a person in who likes a radio station that you never listened to, all of a sudden you try it, you might find, wow, I didn't know I did like that. That's or you try a different dish that you never tried before, then that broadens your view, that broadens your perspective. Because again, the simple, easy, comfortable thing to do is to jump into what you know and what you're most familiar with, and that happens quickly, right? When we talk about hiring for these different jobs, then my challenge is to take the time to investigate, take the time to look at places other than the places you've always looked, rather than doing the things you've always done. And there's strength in that, right? If everybody on your staff is 45 and above, then you don't understand any of the perspectives of the people who are 45 and below. If everybody on your staff is a coach of color, then you don't understand the perspectives of people who are not in that way, right? And so people who are white. And so that's the vision, and that's the hope that I have, is that and there are a lot of other factors involved. There are a lot of other roads that we can go down. There's roads where people say, well, we got to get more coaches in the pipeline. We got to get more coaches ready, right? Okay, there's some truth to that statement. It's not all the way truth, because there is a lot of coaches who are ready to be head coaches. There are a lot of coaches who are ready to advance their careers. But I think that, people can always learn. We can always do all we can to help people grow. So that's a solution that will always work. I think, you have to have when you talk about hiring people, when Zay is the only one doing the hiring, well, it's going to always look like Zay wants it to look. But when you have a diverse panel of people hiring, right? When you say, okay, Zay, you got a problem doing this because you always do what you always did. Well, let us help you out. Let's give you a diverse panel so we can have some discussion about this, so we can throw different ideas, so we can bounce things off of you, so that we can make a better, more comprehensive decision rather than the decision that you always come up with, right? So I think those are two things that end up helping this situation that we are in.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Kansas State is doing a pretty decent job of diversity, because I seen you was talking to the basketball coach, and he's the first African-American head coach on K-State. And now he has a diversity coaching staff with him as well. So, yes, sir.
Well, I think that the thing that we find is once you try diversity, once you try it, it ends up being a fruitful operation. I always use this analogy, is that diversity is in hiring is like, you have that sweater in your closet. You got that sweater in your closet. I got a green sweater in my closet, right? And it's a very nice sweater. It's a cool sweater, but I never seem to put it on, right? I see it in my closet all the time. Man, this would be a cool thing to wear for Christmas time. Get to Christmas time, I never wear it. It's a cool sweater, right? I don't get rid of it because it's a cool sweater. but I never want to seem to wear it. That's the same thing with diversity, is that everybody speaks a good game about diversity, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to put it on. No, this is not the right time, right? That not the right time. Maybe another time. Eventually, right? Somebody else does it. Somebody else wears that sweater, but you still got it in your closet, and it's a good thing. It's a good sweater, but you're just not willing to step out there and fight the criticism if you put that sweater on and it doesn't look good. You know what I mean? Sometimes you put it on and it does look good, right? And so that's kind of the analogy that I use, is the sweater in the closet.
You're a sly dude, Coach. I love that. I like that analogy right there. So what are some of the biggest struggles and challenges you see college coaches face? Whether it's not, sometimes it's a long journey, right? You don't get paid. Sometimes, me personally, I had to drive the equipment truck 10 hours. So it's just like a lot of things that coaches don't do out the scene. So what are some of the biggest struggles you see as a college coach?
Well, I think that coaching is just like any other career, right? There's good and there's bad. I have I have 3 sons, and over the years, as those guys have grown up, we've had an opportunity to go to many bowl games, and we've also had an opportunity to be fired, right? And so what I has told my sons is that, didn't you love that experience when we went to the Cotton Bowl? Man, that was great. When we went to the Hawaii Bowl, that was fantastic. You had an opportunity to be in Honolulu, Hawaii, right? Well, this is the opposite side of it, right? Your friends, they didn't get a chance to go to Honolulu, right?
Right.
But then on the flip side, they also are living in the same house for 14 years, going to the same set of schools with the same friends. And so there's some give and take in coaching for your family and for the coach. What you spoke of is the journey that sometimes you have to take. There's some guys, you're talking about driving the equipment truck. There's some coaches, they went from playing to all of a sudden they're coaching in Power 5 to maybe they're coaching in the NFL, right? There's some other guys who went from playing, then all of a sudden they were assistant coach, and now they're a head coach somewhere, right? And there are coaches who never coach on the lower levels. They straight Power 5 coaches. There are other coaches who coach Division 3 for 30 years, who coach Division 2 for 30 years. It's all about your walk, right? And I'm a faith-driven person, and so I believe that we all are assigned a walk, and sometimes getting fired, that's a part of that walk, right? Sometimes for you driving the equipment truck, that's a part of your walk, because the fact that you had to drive the equipment truck, the fact that you had to drive 37 miles to exchange the film with another university, the fact that you had to be the guy to cut the field, the fact that you had to be the guy to mark the field, and that I didn't do those things. Hey, man, I have my struggles over here, just like you have yours, I have mine, right? You have your rewards that maybe I don't, because you learned quite a bit when you were dealing with that equipment truck that maybe I didn't get a chance to learn. And so I always encourage young players, but then also young coaches as well, man, don't pay attention to that guy's recruitment, right? He was a 5-star recruit, and he went straight to the University of ABC, right? You were a 2-star recruit, and you went straight to the university, backyard university. And guess what? At the end of the day, you both end up in the NFL. You both end up in a place where you can accomplish the goals that you might set for yourself. And so you just got to understand, your walk is not my walk, right? And your job is to pedal the bike, right? And not your job to steer the bike. God is steering the bike, right? You see your life through the peephole view, right? You look out that peephole and you see what's right in front of you. Right. God, hate to turn this into a sermon, but God has your life in the drone view, right? And so all you see is what's ahead, but there are things around the corner. There are things that you just can't see that are coming. And so my point in that is you have to respect your walk, and your walk is not my walk. And as you look over at my walk, all you see are the glamorous things, right? All you see, but you don't you don't experience what I experienced in terms of when I got fired. If you make $500,000 as a coach, when you get fired, you don't make 500,000. And so you got $500,000 worth of bills that you got to deal with.
Right.
When you make 27,000, it's a little bit easier to find 27,000 to pay 27,000 in bills, right? And so there's struggles that other person they might not see. I'm no Bible scholar, but I know it says that somewhere in the Bible.
Oh, for sure. So now we get to a special segue I like to call Remember the Time. So we're gonna give you a little flashback moments, Coach. So what was your favorite off the field experience you had with your players as a coach, whether it's playing an April Fool's joke like you did at SMU or whatever, but just a memorable experience?
Man, that's a hard one because those April Fool jokes, though, that's why you do stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's because I always heard this from a few people in my life. My wife is one who says life is about memories and moments, and that's what I do with my own kids and my family. But that's what I do with my players, is that we're always trying to have memories and moments, especially in this world of NIL and transfer portal. Those relationships, they're big time important. And so if I would have to grab 2 or 3 moments, I'm gonna just grab one. One moment, and it's not like a specific moment, but it's moments that we have every week before the game. What I do with my players is we have what we call the walk. And when we go on the walk, we do it normally the morning of the game. And to me, it's a way to get them up and moving. And I'll send them a message and I'll have the question, right? This is the question that we're going to deal with on the walk. And some of the prominent questions we've had are things like, okay, you see this pretty girl over there. How do you introduce yourself? What do you say? Right. And so this was a cool, funny moment because I got an opportunity to hear 2023, this I guess Gen Z, to hear how these dudes approach meeting a young lady. One guy said, I'll just jump in her DMs. Another guy said, I'll just go over and say, hey, hot mama, what's going on? No, he didn't say hot mama. He said, hey, shawty. Hey, shawty, what's going on? Another guy said he just walk up to her and look at her. Another guy said he would tell her that, something about her was pretty. And there was some pretty lame lines. So that was a good moment for me to be able to hear that my guys have no clue as to how to connect with a young lady. Another moment that we had was the question was, if I gave you $100,000, what business would you start? And so guys had different ideas, pretty cool ideas. Guys talked about they would invest it, let it grow, and start other businesses. But just to get my guys thinking about that again, it was cool to take them off the field, to get them to thinking about those type things. And then the third one that I bring is that we had a question as to, if you won the Powerball, what would be the first thing that you would do? One of my guys, which was really funny, one of my guys said he would buy a helicopter. And so I always tease him about that. Like every time I see him, I say to him, helicopter? Come on, man. You know what I mean? Why would you buy a helicopter? Do you know how to fly? You have any license? No, I think it'd be cool to have a helicopter. And so those are, man, other than what we do out on the football field, those are the most enjoyable moments as a coach, that I've had. Of course, winning bowl games and playing in bowl games and having an opportunity to travel with the play. That's cool. But just those moments, man, where you learn about players and you have them learn about each other, but then you're able to pour into their lives on things other than, football.
Right. Next question. Name a time building a relationship took you somewhere you never thought you would be.
Wow. Well, I do as a coach. I believe that relationships are vital. People don't ever really care. Like as a coach, you said something about me being prestigious. People don't
Mhm,
care
mhm,
about the stuff you've done. They just want to know that you are genuine, that you care about them. Bottom line.
mhm,
And so I think that's important with our players. And so I'm always working to develop, to grow those relationships.
mhm,
And um, I've had some talks, some discussions with players that has taken me places like, young man say to me, Coach, I before I got here, I lived in a shelter.
mhm,
you know Before I got here, my family and I, we were split up. Before I got here, Coach, um, I had a big time struggle with drugs or alcohol.
mhm,
And so, like, those moments, they they far outweigh, again, anything that happened on the football field. And
mhm,
it has helped me to realize how vital my job is, my career is in this individual's life,
mhm,
because, again, I can rattle off players that I've had an opportunity to coach that play in the NFL,
mhm,
that have, you know been all conference and all this stuff.
mhm,
But the relationships with those guys who walk in, um, from places like shelters and places like drug rehabs,
mhm,
like, that's the most gratifying, when you help that young man
mhm,
achieve the goals that he may have for his life. And sometimes the dude doesn't even have those kinds of goals, and you have to help him set those things up. You have to show him that there is a future for a person like him. And
mhm,
so those are the things that, or those are the moments that, no, I didn't know we were going to be going down that road.
mhm,
But as we went down the road, and as we climbed those mountains,
mhm,
it ended up being a fruitful discussion, in developing that relationship.
mhm. Love it. Last one for the segment. Favorite place that you traveled to that football took you?
Wow, man, I've had an opportunity to meet former presidents,
Mhm,
as a coach, and so I've had an opportunity, man. I've been blessed in this game.
mhm,
Um, but like I said earlier, we played a game in Hawaii, and
mhm,
that was cool. Um, we played. I've had an opportunity to coach in the snow. Have
mhm,
an opportunity to coach in different raining conditions.
mhm,
But I think I would have to say, coaching in the Hawaii Bowl.
mhm.
Because there's a lot of people in my family, that have dreamed of, being in Hawaii and going
Right.
to Hawaii. And, that's probably, that's the place people would pick. And here I
Mhm,
am coaching in a game. And actually, when I was in college, I had an opportunity to play in the Hula Bowl,
mhm,
which is the same place there in Hawaii. And so, that would probably be my favorite. I've coached and recruited and been all over the country with
mhm.
football, but Hawaii was probably the best one.
Love it, love it, love it. So getting back to the interview at hand, Nick Saban just retired. So when a coach like that retires, does that shake up the coaching market? Does that shake up the coaches world, or everything goes about normal? Or how is it right now?
Well, anytime you have a coach, man, of Nick Saban's stature,
Mhm,
um, decide to retire, it's a shock for everybody. I mean, Nick Saban is synonymous with success. He's had success, different places that he's been. He's a phenomenal, and he's been a phenomenal coach, but then also a leader in the world of sports, but then in the college football arena. And so, to lose him, is a big blow to college football.
mhm,
But we all know you can't do this forever. And I think that, the fact, it's kind of what I've heard, and just read in different segments that Nick Saban has said is that, man, it's just changing, and it definitely is changing. The landscape is changing, and it's not a situation where that he would want to continue in the way college football is headed. And some of that is very good, but it's just different. You're a coach or you're a person, and you drove a car on the left side of the street, and now all of a sudden we're gonna be driving on the right side of the street. That's a different mode. And for Nick, I believe for him to go out to leave the game in the fashion they left it, he definitely he made it better, and so I think it's important for you to leave the game to be able to do things that you want to do. But I mean, I definitely understand him leaving the game. So is there a shakeup? For sure there is. But coaches leave, and I think Alabama made a great hire, and it just shifts. One person's gonna go to Alabama, then somebody's gonna go to replace him. There's continually movement, and I think everyone, all the universities involved, are making good hires as they fit for them at that time.
So, with like you said, it's a new world, new age of day within college sports. So now you got NIL deals that's going on so big right now today. So how do you think that will even affect the locker room of other players? Some guys getting paid more, some guys feel like they might not get paid enough. Like, as a coach, how do you have to handle all that, and what do you see out of all that?
Well, I think we're in a place, a space where athletes are given an opportunity to take advantage of their names, of their image, of their likeness, of their brand. And back when I played, you couldn't take advantage of those things, right? And so to allow student athletes to be able to do that, I think is a great thing. And so you have the NIL opportunities, but then you also have the collectives, and the collectives it's just two different. It's just two different worlds. So when you talk about the locker room, I don't think there's anyone in a locker room that would have a problem with student athlete A who likes fishing, right? And him being on social media or whatever medium saying, hey, on Saturdays I'm sacking quarterbacks, but on Sundays, man, I love using these Thompson lures to catch bass fish, right? To use his brand to monetize a thing that he may love to do, have a relationship with a company, with a business, to be able to take advantage of that relationship from a monetary standpoint. I don't think anybody in the locker room would have a problem with that, right? But I think what I've heard stories of is young men being on a team, and they're like you said, them getting a lot of money for no reason. So I think what happens in the locker room is when you have a young man who, just like in the NFL a few years ago, you had a rookie on the team and he's getting an exorbitant amount of money. Well, you got a guy who's been on the team and who's what we would say paid his dues. And so older guys had a problem with that. I think that's when you run into the locker room, is when guys are getting money from wherever, whatever source, and maybe somebody else on the team who, in their view, is doing more for the success of the team. Very different than the relationships that you may truly have with businesses out there in the marketplace. And so for me personally, I think it's just important that I take great responsibility in being able to educate student athletes on the importance of them having a good brand, right? The importance of them knowing what things are important to you. What do you like to do? There's companies out there worldwide who you can have a relationship with, that you can take advantage of their want or need to have a student athlete stand up and align with them. And then again, the fact that this is a company that that aligns with who you are and what you're about. Like I use the example of the Thompson Lure Company, right? That I like fishing. These guys have fishing lures. I like their fishing lures. That's an alignment opportunity.
Right.
I don't think anybody in the locker room has a problem with that.
Right. So in this new world today, even let's say in NFL, NBA, athletes are going broke every year because they don't know how to manage their money. And now you got somebody like Angel Reese. She got just $1.7 million deal. So now we're talking to college athletes about money and things like that. Is anybody teaching them how to invest their money, or how do y'all go about just managing them?
Well, Coach Malone, I mean, you talk to my wife, she probably tell you Coach Malone not the best at managing money. But I do believe that student athletes, as they walk down this path, like I was talking earlier, they're dealing with contracts, they're dealing with tax implications, right? Understanding that when you get a car, you're taxed on that resource. You know, when I had one of my players, he had an NIL deal where he got underwear. Hey man, you're getting taxed on those drawers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so them understanding that, because when the IRS comes calling, they're not going to want to hear that you got a meeting with Coach Malone, that you got 7 on 7. They don't care about that. You're going to you're going to be accountable for the taxes that with these money and resources that you are accepting. And so I think it's so important that I say we, listen, for my players, I'm going to do the best I can to communicate that they need professional help. You know, is that my job? Well, I don't know if it is. It's not in my job description, but the job description that I have for making sure that my players are okay 20 years from now, I want to do the best I can to educate them, to help them find professional help, to be able to navigate this situation that they're in as student athletes / businessmen and women. And so I think it's important that we take that responsibility as coaches, as athletic departments, as universities, putting these young people in these positions.
And that's actually, I'm not sure if I told you or not, but that's why I created Off the Field Financial Services. I have my own financial services company. That's where all these plaques are from, just from building the team and accumulating money. But just understanding the importance of managing your money and just educating people, a lot of times athletes, a lot of times coaches. So that's really what I do in my business as well. I mean, in my business as well as coaching. So I really try to educate the athletes and educate people that's out of college on how to manage their money, how to fund their money. Because if somebody just puts $100 away a month or something, they can create their own bank. And just certain things that people didn't have the knowledge to. It's not that they just oblivious, because schools don't teach us this. And the coaches, if you're an athlete, you're always in football, understanding the real world stuff. But if there's nobody teaching you this information, it could just go over people's heads. And then when they hit the real world and stuff that comes like that, they don't know how to prepare, or they hear about becoming your own bank. Oh, that's a scam, or just things like that. So that's why I created Off the Field Financial Services.
Well, I tell you what, man, that's big time. And for me, I think people, you create business, you create service because there's a need for it. And I would say that, especially the direction that college athletics, that college sports are headed, I think that's a big time service for for our student athletes. And I definitely want to talk more offline with you about having my student athletes take at least be introduced to what you do.
Of course, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm here for it. So now we get to the last segment of the interview, Coach. Are you ready for it?
Always ready, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hot seat. What is the most spontaneous thing you ever done?
Man, so I was coaching at another university, and our staff had just gotten on the campus. And you know what happens when you're a new staff, You say you want to change the culture. You say you want to challenge the players to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And so those are the messages that we're doing, and that's kind of the track that we are as coaches. We're going down this track. Well, one day we took our team to the pool, right? To the auditorium area, right? And so we're at the university, man. We got diving boards that are, I don't know, they're pretty high, right? I'm not necessarily a diver, right? I'll swim every now and again, but I'm swimming like on a beach somewhere, right? And I'm swimming in a pool. Hey, right? It takes a whole lot. It's got to be a relaxing situation. Well, we're taking these guys. This is a day off, right? We're gonna have fun, and so they're getting on the diving board, and they're those low diving boards. Well, then a few of our players, they go up to the high dive, right? To the platforms, and so something just hit me. I'm pretty much a spontaneous person at times. Something just hit me. You know what? Let me go and let me challenge myself. Let these players see me get uncomfortable. Like I said earlier, I'll swim, but I'm not, hey man, this is not a big deal for me. So what I said is I'm gonna go up to the highest platform and I'm gonna do something pretty much spectacular and spontaneous. So I said I do swim, but I'm not a great swimmer, right? You would almost say that I can't swim, right? So, but I if I get in, like I can survive, right? I'm not gonna die in the water. Well, I go up, I climb up, I'm going up to this high platform, and there are kids up there, and they're up there, they're nervous, like, oh wow, they look down, they're nervous. So I walk up there and I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go. If you're up here, there's like 5 kids up there. Let's go. Jump off. Let's go. Let's go. So I'm either forcing you off or you got to go back down.
Go walk down.
Right? And so I'm making you make a decision. We're not going to be up here discussing it. You're not going to be up here with your knees shaking. You're either going off or you're going back down. Right. And so there's 3 of them went back down, and 3 of them, they just went off. Right. And when they went off, it wasn't a big deal. Right. But my purpose was I wanted to get all these kids off so I'd be the only one up there. So I walk up to the platform. I don't look down. I just go off backwards. And everybody's like, look, Coach Malone, he's going. So I go off backwards. Man, I never done this before in my life. So I don't know how you're supposed to flip. I don't know anything. I just go off backwards. I walk up, go off backwards. And they tell me that like I landed on my neck. Well, time out, rewind. Before I went up to do this, I told the lifeguards, hey, when you see me walk up there, you need to clear, because I'm probably gonna not know what to do. So you guys are gonna have to grab me and save me, right? So they clear the pool. I walk up, I go off, and the lifeguards, they did their job. They grabbed me, right? And so I get out of the pool, and one thing at this university, we were really big on social media. So everything that we did as a new staff, we had these social media guys, they were putting on social media. Well, I get out of the pool doing this thing that I'd never done before. And I go over to our social media guy. He's on the ground fixing his camera.
No, he missed it all.
He missed it.
Oh,
so I'm like, hey man, did you get it? He was like, my camera's jacked up.
Oh man, he couldn't take a phone or something.
I'm like, hey man, you telling me you missed this? Like this is not something I'm ever doing again. And you missed it. Well, next component of this is one of our coaches on the staff. He calls my wife and he snitches, and he tells my wife that I just jumped off the high diving board. And she said, he can just barely swim. What did he do? So I told him, hey man, snitches get stitches. So that's the most spontaneous thing that I've ever done. And I probably am going to let that hold the title, that experience hold the title for a long time.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you for coming on today, Coach. Anything you want to say to your fans and supporters out there?
Well, man, I'm just gonna say that, like you and I have shared that, if you ever want to help somebody, or if you ever want to pay somebody for helping you, then you do a good thing by helping the next person. You don't have to know them, just help them, right?
Yes,
And you keep that spirit growing, right? You keep that spirit growing. You help me, I help you. He helps him, he helps him, and we keep it going. So I appreciate you for having me on. I appreciate you for what you do. The world, our college football, our college athletics needs young dudes like you doing what you do, and it makes me proud. So I appreciate you for having me on.
of course, Coach. Of course. Thank you again.
For sure.